In May 2021, I reviewed Furnace, a bidding game by designer Ivan Lashin and publisher Hobby World for 2 to 4 players, in which they build a chain of industrial buildings to convert raw materials into cash. You're trying to turn coal and iron and oil into coins, and whoever ends up with the most coins wins. Okay. And in November 2021, I published another video about Furnace, in which I cut the box down to roughly 1/3 its original size. Had a lot of air in it, didn't need the air, wanted to keep the game, but wanted it in a smaller package, so I made one by cutting down the box. Did a decent job. This sort of curves a little at the end here when I was cutting it with the utility knife. Could have been a little straighter, so it's got this slight curve at the edge, and I cut halfway through the box to fold it over. There's other ways to do it where you sort of crimp the backside and fold it down, where it could have had more structural integrity. But in general, works perfectly. Does what I want. Holds all the pieces. Takes up less space on the shelf. Had to fold the rules as well. Sure, that works. And now everything fits inside. But in the comments to my post about cutting down Furnace, the designer said, well, what are you going to do when the expansion comes out? And I said, I don't know. I'll see what happens when that time comes. And it's PLS in 2023. I happened to run into Ivan Lashin in the restaurant at my hotel, and he said, so do you have the expansion of the Furnace? I said, no. He said, do you want the expansion of the Furnace? I want to see if you can fit it in that box you cut up. Okay, I'll take on that challenge. Sure. Now, if it doesn't work, everything will fit in here just fine. And now I'll have this on my shelf instead of this. Sort of the same volume. Would it work? We'll see. We'll see what happens. Now, what's interesting is when I was young, I could not have cut up my boxes. Everything had to stay intact. Everything had to stay as pristine as possible. This is with books and with games and with records and with trading cards, everything. Wanted it in an untouched condition. Not sure why exactly, but essentially I wanted it almost as if I had never touched it. No human had interacted with this object and it stayed pristine. So I would read books, and I would read them somewhat carefully, trying to get the best condition possible, because I bought a lot of used books, and open it just a bit so you're not breaking the spine. If I found a better condition, often I'd get the better condition and then I'd sell off the worse one, even though it wasn't really that bad. It was just one was slightly better. I did this with record sleeves. I keep those pristine, with trading cards. It was a bit obsessive, really. Not sure why. Not sure. No idea. I guess I just wanted the object to be untouched and almost as if I were passing through and leaving no trace of myself. I'm sure a psychologist could do that with something. Sort of have that feeling, even today in many circumstances. Just want to pass on through. Although I am doing a video with my face on it, so apparently I've gotten over it to some degree. Over time, I got better reading other books, caring for them less. I would actually put them in bags and travel with them. And if they got damaged on the trip, well, okay, they got damaged. They got dinged, they got corners, maybe they get torn, whatever it is. I wouldn't do this intentionally, but if it happened, it happened. And so one of the books I had from my youth, Steve Martin, Cruel Shoes, and I know I had it from my youth because it has the label in here from the Bookworm, which was a store in New York near where I lived, where I got lots of stuff. My wife the other day was looking for something humorous to read. I pulled out several options, including this. And then when she opened this, that page fell out because this book is so old. And I said, oh, okay. And I picked it up and I tucked it back inside. And that was that. It felt really good to be over that obsession of having everything in pristine condition because it still works. I can tape in that page if I want. Okay, fine. I'm over it. Generally, sort of. At least with some things, I can just manipulate them and recognize that the value of that thing doesn't come from its untouched nature, but what I get out of it. Feels good to have that perspective. Now, as for furnace, let's put it on camera, see whether we can fit this into this. I would have preferred to do this video with the expansion being unopened, but when I was traveling from Spiel, I needed room, so I opened the expansion, I threw out the insert, I punched everything, and so I already had some idea of what was inside the box. It's a deck of cards, it's got some tokens in a bag that possibly doesn't need to be there. I can drop that in there. Drop this in here. It's got more coins because the game now goes up to 5 players. So you get a new set of bidding markers. Dials. Not even sure what the dials are for because I haven't read the rules yet. I fold this in half. There you go. Puffs up a little bit. Could be a little more compact, but I left the cards in the bag. Left the tokens in the bag. I didn't compile all the cards together. The cards right now are just at the bottom of the box. It would take up less room if I packed it a little more neatly. Got more raw materials, again for 5 players. But that all fits. Done. This, recycle it. Be done with it. Unless I want to cut out this guy's face and put it on a hat here. Maybe like a decoration on his hat. I like the idea. Probably not going to do that. There you are. The expansion of the furnace fits inside the cut-down box of furnace. You can save a lot of space on your shelves should you do something similar. You just chop everything down. It's a little puffy right now. I can get that down just by packing things. Well, removing the plastic bags would probably be the biggest step because then everything could lie loosely and take up less space. It'll all fit really nice. You can shrink all the games on your shelf a lot by doing something like this. I don't necessarily advocate this for every game. I don't even advocate it at all, really. I'm just giving this as an option, something you might think of doing if you find yourself lamenting that you have more games than room. You can get rid of games as well, but you can also do this and just have this sort of nice feeling of compactness where you've got more game goodness per cubic inch than you do in the original box. I did that recently where I opened another game, Moldavia from Zoc, where there was so little inside the box. Actually, let me show you. Had it stacked up on the side here. This is the regular square box that Zoc uses for a lot of its releases. And open Moldavia. It's got the rules in 4 languages as normal. And then you got this. You have a cloth board, which is important for the game because you fold up the board as you play it. You got a bunch of wooden cubes here because everyone's got a set of cubes that you put orders on. I'm going to move in this direction, etc. You got a ship, you got some fish to catch, but you can see how you would convert this into something this big, maybe a lot smaller. And yet, because of the cost of the cloth and the blocks, all the weird components here, and of course, royalties for designer Roberto Fraga, well, you're going to put a certain price tag on it, and that price tag is going to correspond to a box this big, which is a bit overkill, but, you know, that's just what you do. What's interesting is the folding map is sort of indicated by this, which looks like a printing error. Initially, when I first saw this, I'm like, oh, this looks screwed up. But it's intentional to show you how the game works. I don't know. We'll see if I hold on to Moldavia. I've got to play it a couple more times, but for now, I just look at it and I'm like, I could definitely cut that down way smaller. Or it'll just leave the house and then it's someone else's problem. In any case, there you go. If you got furnace, you can get the expansion, fit it inside. Thank you, Yvonne. Now you see, it can be done. Just don't make anything else for the game. In my first video in 2024, I talked about doing more first impression videos where I would play a game and then talk about it immediately rather than wait, try to play it more and try to play it more, and then sometimes just never get back to a game and never talk about it at all. So I want to give a little hints as to what might be coming based on what I play most recently or just want to start talking about, and maybe you can say what you want to see most and I can try to push for doing that first. So we've got the 2 to 5 player game Die Paten, which is an area control game with some missions. You are controlling a mob family. Die Paten is German for the godmother. You are each an animal gang in a city trying to control it. It's pretty brutal. You're trying to push people out all the time in order to score and claim territory and claim their stuff. It's very direct, in-your-face combat. Played it twice, really like it. We have Rife for the Insel and Balloon Pop, 2 games with somewhat similar mechanisms where I think one is more successful than the other in terms of providing an interesting challenge and rewarding you for taking chances. Yeah, that's a short way to put it. We got Moldavia, game I mentioned in the preceding video. I played this twice. It's pretty funky. It's got a weird thing where the board shrinks over time in an interesting way. And then finally, Mandala is a game from 2019 that I reviewed at the time. Loved it. It's a fascinating card game. Really cool by designers Brett J. Gilbert and Trevor Benjamin. Trevor Benjamin, best known for like co-designing Undaunted. This is a very different style. Well, there's a sequel, standalone game called Patterns, which is called the Mandala game because it scores similarly, but the gameplay is completely different. The scoring is kind of the only thing that's the same in a way. Well, the scoring drives gameplay in a certain direction, and so that carries through in Patterns as well. But what's interesting is this is a sequel game that really, it could be the first one, and this could come later. It's not like Ticket to Ride Europe, where clearly Europe is Ticket to Ride with a little bit more, where most Ticket to Ride games are Ticket to Ride with a little bit more. Now with partnerships, now with stocks, now with something else. These work differently because they're more like the same concept, but implemented in different ways. Twins. And you just happen to encounter this one before this one. Or maybe you have not encountered either of them. In either case, I'll put a link to my review of Mandala and then talk about Patterns. Played it twice, really dig it. But ideally I get to play it more and then talk about it once I really have ingrained it in my head. Got a better idea of what I want to say and why I feel about it the way I do. Experience is a good thing.